Buddy, we are back with yet the latest and always greatest. And this time, Andy, I mean it, because we've got a very special guest joining us on the latest edition of Six Rings and Football Things, brought to you as always by your friends at WEEI, Odyssey, and 2400 Sports, not to mention a various host and array of sponsors whose live reads and advertisements have played before this podcast, afterwards, and sometimes and on occasion in the middle of it. On today's program, we're going to take a deeper dive into the 2023 draft class of the New England Patriots, talk with somebody inside the building. The call is coming from inside the house with one of my oldest and longest friends of the New England Patriots, the gentleman who actually ascended to the throne once occupied by Andy Hart before he matriculated his way from one Patriot place over to 83 Leo M. Birmingham in Brighton. It's Fitzy, it's Jumbo, and of course, it's my guy, the Deuce, Mr. Pat's Propaganda, the creator of the 28-3 meme himself, Mike Dussault from Patriots.com. What up, Deuce?
What's up, my guys? Always good to talk to you. A little football, time to check in after the draft. Excited.
Deuce, I can't tell you how many times since the last time we had you on the pod, a couple months back, where you introduced me, you indoctrinated me, if you will. You know, I taught you the magic in our more unfiltered days, working the parking lots, running the blogs about GFY, which the older we get, the more professional our responsibilities, children involved in the equation. We can't really just toss that around the same way we used to. But I got to tell you, 3-letter acronyms. I use SFG, Serious Football Guy, so much now. It is like my favorite thing. Like that's what I want to name. I want all the three of us to start a football network called WSFG, for Serious Football Guys only. You'll be the vice president. Andy, what's your job going to be?
Let's keep us straight.
I'm like the eye candy, I think.
I think can we put Keon White in there, because I think Keon White would be
Oh
the
my
mascot,
God.
maybe, if we want Serious Football Guy.
Yeah, Andy, you'll be like the lead analyst. I'll just be like the Ocean State Job Lot version of Tom Bergeron, just like the generic host that's available for whatever, you know, we need to take us in and out of commercial. Like WSFG is a real thing. And Deuce, will begin as a couple of SFGs, Serious Football Guys, in the room today, talking about the draft. Everyone has had a chance to sit on it, review it, think about it. We've ruminated, meditated. We've seen the grades. They've gone from, I've seen the Patriots finishing 30th out of 32 from some hardo at CBS Sports, to mostly positive reviews of B's, B pluses, even a couple of A minuses. And the caveat to all of them seemed to be, I love the Christian Gonzalez pick. I really like day 2. Kind of have no idea what the hell they were doing day 3. So now that you've had a chance to remove yourself from it a little bit, what were your highs and lows, the best and worst of the Pats draft 2023?
Yeah, well, I think with everybody, I was with you on Gonzalez. I mean, I think that was, the kind of player they needed. I know everybody wanted that wide receiver, but it just wasn't that draft this year. I think, the last couple drafts, if they hadn't gotten a wide receiver there in the first round, you'd probably be pretty disappointed. But I think Gonzalez, all things considered, to get him at 17, he's just so athletic. I think that's what, there's been talk about, oh, he didn't really want to tackle that much. I'm like, you know what? They got plenty of guys in the secondary who want to tackle, okay? Like, we need big athlete, guy who can stick with the best athletes in the league. So Gonzalez, he's only 20 years old. So I think he's still got, a ways to go in terms of his development. So that was a great start to the draft. And then I think from there, it's a lot of, we'll see. I hate to be, middle of the fence here on a draft, but I think, maybe I'm getting a little bit, I don't know if it's jaded, Andy, or if it's educated as you go through these more and more here inside the building, and you see, sometimes the guys you're most excited about don't really work out, and the guys that you maybe sweep under the radar, you don't really have much expectations for, those are the ones that end up, popping. So I love defense. Keon White, though, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of what's going to happen with him. That was one pick where I just am kind of like, maybe he comes in and maybe he's an every down defensive end early on, stopping the run, real tough on the edge, and then he slides inside. Maybe he upgrades Dietrich-wise. But I thought for a second-round pick, that was one that I don't want to say I dislike it, but right now I'm just kind of like, I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. It could go either way for me. So those are the top 2, I think, to highlight things. And then, we get into the later guys, hoping some of those guys work out. But I think a lot of those guys are flyers.
So I say this as a compliment in a way. I think this was a very simplistic draft for the New England Patriots. And I'm starting to wonder if Matt Groh is a very simple man. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way. the quote he's best known for. Surprised you guys haven't pumped out any T-shirts. If you want to get faster, you better draft fast players. If you want to get tougher, you better draft tough players. Like, I think he really looks at it that way. And like, if you want a number one cornerback, you better draft a number one cornerback. And if
you want better athletes on your team, you better draft athletes. Because wasn't the RAS thing a big deal this year, Andy?
Yeah, I'm a little annoyed at that. We can go down that road a different day. But like, he drafts a kicker because they needed a kicker, and he drafts a punter because they needed a punter. And
last year they needed a guard. They drafted a guard.
Right, because they made the hole where they needed the guard. So we don't need to go down that road.
Oh, yes.
But and for Keon White, I think that's a classic Belichickian second round pick where first round talent, but for whatever reason, the guy is available, blah, blah, blah. But if you hit on it, you got a guy that might have been a top 20 prospect based on his overall tools. But so my question really, though, is about Groh. Do you feel, because I do you feel like Groh is kind of putting his stamp on this process? Like, I thought he was pretty confident in his pre-draft press conference, like sort of self-assured of his role in the process. And the thing I found most interesting was when he said, yeah, Bill asks a lot of questions in the room. And it's like, that means you answer the questions. That means you're kind of a big swing and you know what in that room. So just what are your thoughts on the Matt Groh era here?
I think that's a good observation. And I mean, and we here at Patriots.com put out, some of those videos where we interviewed him at the combine. And I think you're totally right. He just has kind of the word I was thinking was self-confidence, just about the process. He's been doing it for a few years now. It'll be interesting to see how this class works out, because I think, we were also high on that 2021 class, and it felt like, oh, this is, Matt Groh is taking over. And this is, and that was kind of the same thing you're talking about. It was like, you took the Alabama quarterback, right, where you probably should have taken him. You traded up for an Alabama guy. You got a couple Oklahoma guys. Right. Like, it wasn't, trying to zig when everyone else is zagging just to zag. So I like what you're saying, and I hope that it works out that way. And I think you guys were talking before, talking about the 6th round, receivers, and I like those picks. Like, I think, like, and I hate to say, like, a 6th round can kind of change how you view the draft, because they do feel like lottery cards. And I don't know if either one of them are going to hit. I think I'll be happy if one of them hits, and I think it's a need that they have. But I do think that there was a lot of paint by number. It was just that I think everybody looked at the offense last year and said, this is the side that really needs the help. You didn't really get that immediate help. And, I do think that defense was kind of, I don't want to say underratedly bad, but I just think, how are you going to get over how are you going to get over that hump against the really good quarterbacks? And I mean, you haven't really seen anything the last couple of years with those front 7 guys. So, to your point, how many times are we going to run it back with Dietrich Wise, Lawrence Guy, Devon Godshaw? It's the same thing. So to inject Keon White at the front level, to, see what we have with Mapu, with him, as a linebacker safety, how that all works out, don't really know. And then with Gonzalez, you get guys at all 3 levels of the defense that I think, at least in theory, should be able to, try to take you to that next level to get over the hump against those quarterbacks. So yeah, I'm with you on Groh. I think he's, taking ownership, but we'll see how this draft, works out.
Fitzy, there's our movie poster for this segment. Patriots.com defense was underratedly bad.
That's a funny thing, because everyone league-wide, anytime Bill Belichick is there, the specter of defensive prowess and greatness will always linger and loom over the team, over Gillette Stadium. And last year, if you look at the team, the offense was so glaringly bad, so historically inefficient, not only just for the New England Patriots, but overall in the 21st century, that it by default made the defense look better, when in fact they couldn't come up with big stops against better teams in big games. Yep. So they did need to add more violence on the front 7. They do need to add better coverage in the secondary, and they do need greater athleticism. And so I think they have addressed all 3 of those points. And I want to get to some other things some other glaring needs as well that I would like to defend about the draft. But, Andy, Mike and I had a chance to talk with Matt Groh a couple years ago. We hosted a little Q&A. I just want to say that's the little, who's the first one to mention every week? When I was doing TV the other night, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, don't tear your bicep again, reaching around to pat yourself on the back, big guy. But when we talked to Matt Groh, I remember, Deuce, when you and I sat downstairs in the studio at the stadium for the streaming little post-draft recap with Matt Groh in studio, and then we talked to Kyle Duggar. The 2 big takeaways were Kyle Duggar is all about football, and that's literally all he cares about. SFG. No wonder why Belichick loves him.
SFG.
And yes, major SFG. and how composed and intelligent Matt Groh is. Like, he is such like, we've even played audio of him on the radio, like Belichick talking and then Steve Belichick talking and then Matt Groh talking. And you literally can't tell who's who. Like, they're clones of each other, but the guy knows his stuff. And I remember we were both so impressed with what he talked about with Josh Bledsoe, his high level of compete, always asking if he is a safety / corner could cover a number one receiver because he wanted the smoke, and how that impressed them. And I just think the draft is in such better. He's continuing to put his handprint on it, if you will, Andy, and he's getting quality football players. Like, I really think the turnaround roster wise started in 21. We'll just wipe out 2020 altogether and the Asiasi and Keen misfires. Thank God they got Duggar in that draft and Mike Onwenu. And I think the change has really begun with them. And to everyone who, like, oh, a little defensive heavy. Okay. But I think all three of us agree maybe the defense did have some glaring weaknesses last year. In special teams, anyone who wants to criticize the need for a kicker and the need for a punter just needs to watch the second half of the season when the Pilardi party, as Andy called it, began, and everyone was sad they accepted the invite because yards per kick went down. He wasn't as good at placing the ball. There were missed field goals by Nick Folk, my guy, big kick Nick. Andy blamed it on Pilardi because he wasn't as good a holder. And the kickoffs, because Vizcaino wasn't him, Nick Folk was on kickoffs. You were losing like 10 to 12 yards of depth on kickoff. That led to longer kickoff returns and multiple kickoff return touchdowns. Like, these little things, when you're a team that is living on the margins, Deuce, matter. And that's what bit them in the ass to me in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you just hope it works out. Drafting a rookie kicker and a rookie punter at the same time. I mean, are there going to be growing pains with those guys? I mean, we saw him take that kid Justin Rohrwasser a couple of years ago. He didn't even, make it out of camp. Didn't even look like he could really kick. Not to say that Ryland or Behringer are going to have that, but they, like Andy said, they kind of had the holes. They filled it in the draft, and you just hope that those guys are able to work out, that they're able to kick in the clutch. They're able, and it sounds like they have all the serious football guy requirements. Talking to some of their coaches here over the last week or so, I talked to the Eastern Michigan coach who said Ryland like came out of the womb mature. So that sounds about right. And then I'd also throw in the bottom two defensive backs who are also kind of special teams guys. I think it's just an issue of balancing it. And as bad as the special teams were, the offense was pretty bad too. And it felt like the special teams kind of got more attention, or at least more immediate attention, than the offense did. And Perillo's, what Fred and him always say, Andy, of don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do. And for a large part, they're bringing it back with the offensive line. They're putting a lot on Bill O'Brien to kind of come in and make this all work together. Again, if Booty or Douglas works out, I think, that's a need to have some speed in the middle of the field. And I think Bill O'Brien could have some fun with those guys, but it's just a lot on him. And that, I think, is where the Patriots have to make up the difference. If the defense, if Keon White doesn't come in and immediately contribute, it's just where are we going to, and the other one thing I'll just bring up too, that just kind of two lingering thoughts on the draft. Surprised they didn't get a tight end. Like, just how do you not, with two guys on 1-year deals, neither one of them really an ideal blocker, to not even, take a swing on one of those guys. I know Groh said that the party was kind of, going by pretty quick with them. And then just, defensive end with Matthew Judon. Like, what happened? I keep saying this all last season. What happens if Matthew Judon goes down? I mean, I just think their depth on the stand-up edge guys is just so thin. Are you expecting Uche to make another leap to play early downs? I'm not really, but Perkins, Jennings, these are guys who haven't played a lot and haven't played at certainly the level that Judon has. So those are just two kind of lingering concerns, I think, coming out. How do you not get the tight end, and what happens here at outside linebacker if Judon goes down?
So I know you've heard this many times as I have. It's a mosaic, this roster building thing, right? And it's never done. There's still plenty of time to do more stuff, but in reality, I think, hell, we're seeing it. Everybody's putting out their roster projections. Like, this is pretty much the group you're picking from. This is your roster, your personnel groupings on various situations are going to come from the guys that we now know. We can go to patriots.com, click, they are there. So the one thing I will defend Bill on a little bit was the whole free agency. They went offense. They added at tight end. They added at tackle. They added at running back. They added at receiver. Could have been different. Could have split it more in free agency and then maybe drafted a little bit different. But putting all those together, James Robinson, I want you to talk about in a minute. Just side note, because I love him and I think he's going to be a stud.
Nice.
But
And
like,
he's pissed too. He's motivated.
how do you feel about the offseason? Like, we're now in May and OTAs are ticking up and we'll be at mini camps and availabilities. And how do you feel about the 1 to 90 roster that will turn into a 1 to 53? Do you feel better about this team?
A little bit. And that's it. I mean, I feel a little bit better about the defense.
For our last broadcast here on WSFG. Thanks for tuning in to the Serious Football Guy show with Deuce, Hart, and Fitzy. We'll talk to you later.
We bring you in for positivity because I killed this guy.
I know. I'm sorry.
He ruined me, and now it seems what's going on, Deuce? I thought we were the Pats positive guys.
Well, I mean, and look, I gotta be honest. I mean, and I think for all the credit we gave Matt Groh, I mean, I still think that the jury's largely out on last year's draft class and how much those guys are going to contribute. Yep. I don't really know with that whole class, and now you add this class in. I think with any draft class, it's hard to know, and they certainly could have gotten a number of pieces that they needed. I think, what they did in free agency is what they usually do in free agency. And generally, I think that is a smart way to build a team. I think we saw in 2021, if you try to rectify all your mistakes with free agency, you're going to overpay. You're going to miss on some of them. You're not going to end up filling the holes. The key is the draft. And that's really what we've been pounding here of how you got into this mess was the draft. And I mean, I went back and did some stupid research last couple of weeks of just compared to the division. I mean, they've flat out missed on more guys than any of those other three teams in the AFC East. I mean, just flat out missed guys that just never have contributed anything. And when you look at the draft results from 2017, 2018, 2019 for the AFC East, this is why the Patriots are where they are. So, do you feel better about it? I think there's some potential there. I mean, I think there's certainly Christian Gonzalez. That's a huge piece you need. If Keon White ends up working out, I think back a little bit to 96, 95 when they got, McGinnis and Ty Law, and you started to really put those pieces into place that, not only got you to Super Bowl in 96, but then formed a dynasty defense in the early 2000s. So, I guess the reason that I'm lukewarm is that I don't have high expectations for the free agents. Not to knock them, just saying based on what we saw, maybe Gesicki comes in and all right, or maybe James Robinson, he's the one that's really productive. One of those guys should be. I'm hoping one of the tackles is productive and healthy and able to play. Riley Reif, are we counting on that? Are we saying Calvin Anderson is now back and he's maybe an ascending guy? I don't know. That's, it's tough to really. Trent Brown, are we getting 17 games out of him again? All at a high level? That's another question. So just a lot of questions. And I think ultimately you want to boil it all down. I think the last three draft classes have to lead the way this year. And if they're going to get over that hump of being able to take down Buffalo finally, of being able to take down Tua finally, which, they still haven't done even with last year's win without Tua over them. Those are the things. I think these young guys, the Tyquan Thorntons of the world, they need to step up and really seize these roles and become the new core. I think that's ultimately going to be the key. But is it a one-year fix? Are the Patriots back? Are they pushing Buffalo in 2023 based on this offseason? I have to see it on the field. Right now, I'd say probably not.
Fitzy, you want to tell him what you call the competition at right tackle?
The bum fight at it's an absolute hobo alley fight between McDermott, Reif, Calvin Anderson. I mean, my guy Stuber could come is that Stuber's music? Who knows? The five guys who may not even get a chance to compete for a practice squad job on some teams could all be competing for right tackle and swing tackle duties here. Who knows? Maybe there is another diamond in the rough and they'll find somebody that, would be Belichickian, or as we now describe them, Bloom-esque, since he loves being a freegan and dumpster diving for free agent players and value finds on his team. But one question we've kind of knocked around for a while, and I want to just get your spin on it as well. This morning, I just wrote up a quick little blog for .com about The Athletic put together their 22 favorite draft picks, and it was a mix of athleticism, value, and where they were taken. And they put 2 of the 22, or at least in terms of both sides of the ball, not special teamers, went to the Patriots. Sidney Sau, 4th rounder, because he may get a shot at tackle, which is impressive because he played there 1 year at Eastern Michigan. And also Marte Mapu, who everyone loves and thinks will be a classic Belichick cog. But do you think, Deuce, when you look at this draft, did they draft for this year to truly compete? And I'm not going to say they're seeding 23 to the Bills and, first year of Rodgers and Jets. Did they really draft for this year? Or was this we'll do our best this year, but we're really in it for 24, 25 as well?
I mean, I think after the first round, you're always kind of, drafting for the future anyway. I mean, I think outside of Gonzalez, who are you really, hoping plays every down? I mean, you get to Keon White a little bit, but then the questions start in terms of, then Mapu, how's he fit into all this? There's certainly a logjam with safety linebacker hybrid. So, how does he carve out a role, especially with the torn pec injury that, could limit him? I mean, you see it all the time with these rookies. It's just unfortunate that guys start out behind the 8 ball. I mean, you saw it with, Harry didn't come in injured, but he got injured pretty quick. And then you just, you see players like him, not to say that I think he ever would have, if he had just been healthy those first couple of weeks of camp, it would all worked out when they kill Harry, but it's just so hard once you get behind the 8 ball. So I do think that there's an eye to the future, certainly on the defensive side of the ball where, it's like I said, you've been kind of running it back with this kind of group over and over and over again. And you see when they go up against the really, really good teams that just, they can't quite make that last play. One other kind of stat that I've just been mentioning a lot, they had a bunch of sacks last year. I mean, I think they were 3rd or 4th in the league, somewhere, close to 60 sacks. They're 21st on 3rd down though. So, it's just a disconnect there for me that, I think the defense, they certainly are kind of like the whole team is when they see blood in the water and it's a weak team and they get out and they get a good start. And it's like, all right, gangbusters, you roll those teams. But, when it's a tough team, you get a bad start, you're in a little bit of a hole. I thought we saw a little bit of resilience there in the final game of the season. How could you not with the circumstances and to start it off the way that they did? But, I think guys like Mapu, exciting. Like, hey, I love watching him play. Certainly, he's one of those serious football guys. And, those are City Sal and him were both guys that I'm writing profiles about. So I've talked to their coaches in the last week or so. Mapu's just everything that the Patriots love. He's, big. He brings the thunder with his shoulder.
Mhm.
He loves watching film. I mean, you guys heard him when he got questioned. It's like all he really likes to do is football. He doesn't really have any other interest. And as far as Sal too, I should just say I talked to his coach, Coach Creighton, who, he played left tackle his first year. And I mean, he said, look, if we had 2 City Sals on our team, they would have been at left tackle and left guard. And we just felt like for us, getting him in the middle of the line to get that interior push was the most important thing to us. So that's why he kind of ended up inside. So I do think that there's some potential there. I've heard, maybe some comps to like Marcus Cannon. I don't, we saw Michael and when you play a little bit of right tackle, but is he going to be a left tackle in the pros? I don't know. And is Trent Brown going back to the left side? Not to keep this whole cycle going of questions, but
Right.
That's how it goes right now,
So we've talked about Fitzy and I that Bill O'Brien might be sort of the most important person in the organization right now because
Sort of.
yeah, okay, he is because of the job he has to do fixing the offense on the field, the technical aspect, but also maybe being the go-between between Belichick and Mac and salvaging whatever that relationship is and just so many levels. But he's in a weird situation, in my opinion. In some ways, he's in a no-lose situation because he's replacing arguably the worst offensive coordinator in the history of football. And I don't say that with any glee.
Arguably?
Okay, so he's the worst. I like Matt. I'm trying to be nice. But on the other hand, because of that, I think people are like, well, they didn't make a lot of personnel changes. So if they're going to be significantly better, it's all on him. Like, so there's almost high expectations there that it's going to be tough to probably meet with no game-changing players or whatever. So what are your expectations for the impact that Bill O'Brien can realistically have? They're going to be better. They're going to be better coached, but are they going to be good enough?
Yeah.
Oh, and Deuce, if I may add to Andy's question, there was that thing that came out earlier this week that said the Patriots offense is largely going to look like it did last year as well, which I think caused a lot of people, Andy, to be like, what the
Don't say it.
I struggle to imagine it could be worse than what we watched in training camp those first couple of weeks. I mean, and it was like,
Can't be.
I've said it before, talking to Paul, like, this 4 years I've watched like all the training camp. Like I used to go to training camp, but you wonder, like, am I really seeing what they're seeing? Like, this looks dysfunctional to me, but are they like, nope, we got all our work in, we got what we needed. It looked fine to us. I think last year proved to me that like, no, it was every bit as bad as we thought it was watching it go down. And so from that perspective, I don't know how it could be that bad. Like I have absolutely expectations that they're going to get out there and at least look like, hey, we practice with purpose. We're accomplishing things. It's not like, all right, now we're going to do 10 minutes of wide zone. It was like, what? Like, this is it. Like, what are we doing? So I expect from that perspective that people will be in better positions. I'll expect them to be better coordinated, right? Like, that's what a coordinator does. The stupid pre-snap penalties, like the consistent mistakes, like that are self-inflicted, not knowing what to do, not getting the play in. all of those things I think have to be better. And then I think when you look at the sum of all the different parts, are there questions? Absolutely. Do they have that number one target? Probably not. But do they have enough pieces to make an effective offense? Do they have some speed? Yes. Do they have some contested catch and size ability downfield and in the red zone? Yes. Do they have a couple tight ends that are a little bit versatile and could maybe cause some matchup problems? Yes. Do they have maybe some potential with some rookies with some quickness in the middle of the field to kind of dust off that old Julian Edelman, Wes Welker kind of, position underneath? You can't just run 4 verts every time, which is what, outside of those 2 rookies, it appears like what they'd like to do between Gesicki and Parker and Thornton. So I do think that they have some pieces to be significantly better. I think the bottom line for me is can Mac and can the offense be better than what they were in 2021 with Josh? Can they take a step forward beyond that? And I don't know where that's going to end them up. I don't expect it'll be in a top 5 offense, but can they be hovering around the top 10 and put up some points against some of the best defenses, especially in crunch time? Those are, it's almost like specific questions of how can this, are they going to end up at the end of the year, high rankings, all that? Probably not, but I think that they can be effective with the pieces if they're coordinated and they all come together at the right time.
Yeah, I think you said that can they take a step forward beyond 2021? First things first, they have to get back to the line where they began the 2022 season before they took massive regressions and huge steps back last year. So the first step forward was bringing Bill O'Brien aboard. The second step forward was bringing in some new guys like Robinson to replace Harris. He doesn't really replace Harris, but he's your backup running back. Could be a cog that can be used all over the green veritable chessboard, if you will. Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki. Okay, now let's see how they implement this offense. Even if it looks similar, what if it's actually just more professionally run with competence? And you have to solidify the line. The special teams were a big issue last year. The offensive line was a big issue. You hire Adrian Clem. That brings you another step back to where we began 2022. So before we go past 21, we got to get back to at least where we thought they were in May of 2022 before the S hit the fan. Speaking of people who could potentially be playmakers, value picks, diamonds in the rough, there's a couple that we have our eye on. We were talking before the pod about Andy believes now there almost might be an unhealthy amount of pressure on this Kayshon Boutte kid, who everyone thinks is going to be Steph Diggs 2.0 because fastest receiver ever to 100 receptions at LSU, 300 yards as a freshman, 300 yards in a game against Ole Miss. Like, the tape is out there that when he's healthy and his mind is right, this kid's a stud, but there have been issues along the way. And also, the other guy who I'm just as interested in is the richest deal ever given to an UDFA, undrafted free agent, for those not in the know. UDFA is a spinoff network of WSFG. Malik Cunningham. Now, this could potentially be the 20th year that an undrafted free agent makes the Patriots, which is like an NFL record by eons. This guy looked like, seriously, you want to talk about like the market basket or the Shaw's version of Lamar Jackson?
That's what I said, undrafted Lamar. That's what he is. Undrafted
Lamar. That's it. We're just going to call him. I mean, he can scoot. He moves like with the ball in his hands. He looks great. I said, I asked Andy one day, do you think they could try to put him on some sort of Edelman track where he returns kicks, tries to be a receiver? Because he himself said, I'll do whatever it takes to make the team. Oh, I got the usual earful. Oh, so he's going to be a Super Bowl MVP. Oh, you're just comparing him to one of the clutchest players in Patriots. Any chance to bust my football?
What Andy does, I know.
That's what Andy do. What Andy does, I get it.
Objectivity.
Do you believe there's any chance either of these guys makes the team? And if we temper expectations, could have a little impact this year and then grow with the offense?
Yeah, I mean, the Boutte thing kind of reminds me of what they did a lot in like the mid 2000s with Brady, where they'd get like, this former first round pick receiver that flamed out and, and bring him in, just give him a try. A lot of times it didn't work out, but they were always open to that. So, I mean, I love and I throw Demario Douglas in there too, because I just kind of consider those guys joined at the hip. And I like what they both represent, where with Boutte, former 5-star recruit, did it at the highest level. If he had continued to do it, he would have been, a first round kind of consideration guy. Has character, concerns with how everything went down last year and on all the off-field stuff. But at 6th round, I mean, what do you have to lose? I don't really have high expectations for him, but I think one of those two. I need to see one of those two. And and Douglas is a small school guy, but has that kind of electric quickness. And I think Paul was writing his profile and kind of almost got the vibe of, hey, if Marcus Jones played offense full time, this is kind of, might kind of be what he would be like. So hard to say like, oh, these guys are going to come in and, make Kendrick Bourne redundant and they'll be able to get, I'm not going to say that, but if one of those guys can come in, be the fourth or fifth receiver, jump in specialty situations, help out with punt returns, I think it would be a huge need filled. As for Cunningham, I'm not really holding out hope he's going to be a receiver, but I do think that they've gotten lit up going back to like 2019 by Lamar and people of his ilk who run well. And, I think part of that is like I'd look at like a Mapu to say like they're still last year, watch Mac Wilson try to go against Lamar, look like he was, as we said, in a blender the whole time. Can they find somebody who's smart enough to and quick enough to keep up with those guys? So I like the thought of Cunningham even just being the practice squad guy. And, when we've got to face the Justin Fields or we've got to face one of these mobile quarterbacks, we've got a guy who who's not just going to give us a look, but is going to really show the kind of like speed that you need to be aware of that he has, because you just can't recreate it. So I love the speed aspect of it. I'm not really holding out hope that there's some kind of intrigue that he's going to push Mac and all of a sudden he's the third quarterback and all that kind of stuff. But I do think it's a big need and it's been a big problem for this defense. You talk about, they're a little bit overrated when it goes well and they play a third string quarterback who doesn't really know, like, hey, it's all good then. But, when you get a quarterback who can run, and you got to think about that part of it, they've had some trouble.
So we've touched a little bit on Groh and Bill O'Brien. I'm wondering what you think of the power structure within the organization, which has been obviously a big topic this offseason. Add in Gerard Mayo, Steve Belichick, Joe Judge, his role to that mix. I threw the phrase around for Bill Belichick, semi-retired. I think he is now an overseer. I think he has a lot of people with credibility, the word we've been using, but also that he trusts in a lot of those roles, and maybe he won't have to be all, do all, wear all the hats, as Steve Belichick says. So what are your overall thoughts of how this organization, coaching staff, the structure of everything comes together, maybe in response to the dysfunction of a year ago and probably at the behest or the pushing of the Kraft family?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't know how you guys felt, but I just, like when Bill O'Brien came into the room a couple of weeks ago and we got to interview him, it's just like this. I said to Paul, I'm like, this guy, he's got like head coach swagger. Like he just like, he just has a confidence about him in what he does, where he's been. He's obviously seen it all at this point. So I just love that addition where it just feels like, all right, certainly Bill at this point can say, tell me what you need to, but I don't need to have my hand in this jar. Right. The only thing I just would wonder is how much of an influence did Bill have on the direction that the offense tried to take last year? I mean, I know it didn't work, but what was the impetus? Because it seemed to everybody who was out there watching, you guys saw it. It's like, wow, they really want to push the ball down the field. That was the only thing they could really do. There wasn't much of that underneath stuff anymore. It just seems philosophically it shifted a little bit. And my question is Bill still driving that kind of philosophical switch? Not so much, saying, all right, we need to run these plays, but just saying, look, if we want to compete in today's NFL, I feel that we need to go downfield more with, it's just, that feels like part of it. So is that going to carry over into this coaching staff? And I mean, I know Joe Judge is, was part of that offensive coaching staff last year, but, just not having that Ernie Adams guy. I mean, he had the Matty P up there a couple of years ago, just to have these kind of support pieces in place so that, he can be as effective as possible and have his hands in as many different things and doesn't need to get bogged down, in the offense or the defense this year. So maybe he can give some attention to special teams and all that. So I hope so. I'm wondering where things are headed. That, last year that whole situation did not work out well. I think everybody kind of feels like, man, we didn't really accomplish much last year. It feels like we kind of burned a year.
Entirely. That's exactly, Juice. That is the biggest takeaway. They pardon my French. They pissed away a year. Like Mac Jones is basically, I call it his emotional redshirt season. Like it's his third year in the league, but to me, he's a second year quarterback because if anything, they undid so much of what he learned in the quality progress he made, not as a 5-star or blue chip quarterback entering the NFL, but as a serviceable mid-level quarterback who made significant strides. And everyone would have wanted him over Trevor Lawrence after 2021. And now it's the exact opposite because we see what quality coaching and competent coordinating, all the C words. That's Andy's big thing recently. He keeps saying like the Patriots are all about the C word, competence, confidence, competitive. Like this is what we can expect out of the team this year. And I think that it's crazy to think that, and I fawned over and geeked out about that graphic yesterday from the Game Day NFL on the socials, where it's like most playoff wins by NFL teams since 2000. and the Patriots have 30, and the next team doesn't even have half as many. And it just sort of washes over you like, oh my God, we really will never wrap our mind around how great they were and how good we had it for so long. But it is so jarring when you're like, okay, so we woke up every year and we're like, well, AFC Championship for starters. And now it's like, can we be competent? My God.
Yeah, and I just want to get back to the things that, that we kind of came to believe over the course of 20 years. Certainly Tom Brady was Tom Brady, and that whole element of it is, he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and that covers up a lot. But still, I don't think it's too much to expect a team that doesn't make stupid mistakes in the key moments, that, isn't having self-inflicted wounds. Like, those things, like, I can deal with a lot. I can deal with, just coming up short when you played well and all that. But, just last year, there was just too much where it felt like you're not even giving yourselves a chance right now. And that's, always that core tenet that we come to believe, that you got to learn how to not lose first before you can win. And, it just felt like last year's team was a step back and, just couldn't quite get out of their own way in some of the key times. So that's the biggest hope of just the restructured coaching staff, that they're able to, pull that stuff out in the big moments and, play their best football against the best teams. It's just something we haven't seen a lot of in the last few years. And it's, certainly they house those bad teams. Team come here not ready to play or shorthanded, they're ready to go. It's just they got to get back to beating good teams, and I think that's the biggest thing that just stands out. Improve drafts, beat the good teams, and they'll be back on track.
And entertain me, because I don't think they've been a very entertaining football team for a couple of years.
That's a great point. And I just look at like the 10-3 over the Jets, which was like, my God, what we sat through 59 minutes and 40 seconds of that.
One play.
And at least, 2021, at least, like, look, it didn't always go great, but you gave Tampa a hell of a time. You gave Dallas was a hell of a game to watch.
It was fun.
It was.
There weren't a lot of those games where it just, I think that's a big thing. Is like, you kind of get a sense, Patriots are cooked in this one. And, when it's against a good team, I mean, I don't know how you guys felt, but as soon as Buffalo ran that opening kickoff, I'm like, there we go again.
But then they stormed back and they took the lead.
Right. And that was the most shocking thing of the whole
season.
And
Andy and Deuce, the defense let them down late. And then Mac tried too hard and he threw some dumb picks late on. So the offense wasn't prepared. Just kind of like back in the preseason of 2022. And they said, offensive players reportedly said, so what are we going to do if the defense reacts to the formation we put out there? And they were told, like, we'll figure that out later.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but that's the Bill O'Brien thing, where he's got the answers right away. He's just been through it all. And, that kind of confidence trickles down through the team. And so, I have high expectations for what he's able to do. I mean, I think, it's just last year, the coaching, it wasn't good enough. And I don't think the players ever bought in. And it's shocking in retrospect to say that, because at the time I was like, I don't know how you were, Fitzy, like kicking and screaming the whole time. Like, this can't be it. Like, this can't be really bad. It can't be this bad. Really? Like, this is really how it's going to go.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole season, I mean, it was, joint practices. I mean, everything. It was just, you're always kind of like, oh, they had a couple good plays there, like that. But it looked the same the whole season long. They make a couple big plays down the field. They'd have a bunch of screwy mistakes, false starts, all that kind of stuff. They'd back up. It was the same thing. The narrative that was established in August continued through the year. So they got to break that cycle.
If the narrative this year is looking like, let's just say that the narrative that the Red Sox are going down, there were some low expectations, roster not exactly decked out in stars, but now they're a competitive team. They're entertaining, probably not going to be a playoff team when the totality of the season plays out. It's a long year, but let's just say the Patriots go sort of down that same road. You mentioned it earlier. The division's tough. You're in a tough division. If they are, I've been saying this, they might be a much better team that finishes in fourth place. Is that good enough? Like, is that enough for you? Is that enough for fans? Is that enough for Robert and Jonathan Kraft? Is that enough to be better, but not good enough?
I mean, if that's the situation, I mean, of course, you need to tell me, like, what did the losses look like? They lost in overtime to Buffalo. Like, oh my God, we had, but I would just say, kind of to get back to my last point, do you come out of this season feeling like, hey, we've got maybe 2, maybe 3 potential NFL stars brewing on this team that we didn't quite realize before the season? And wow, I don't know how it's all going to work out, but holy crap, Tyquan Thornton had 900 yards receiving and, had that one game where he was running by everybody. And wow, Mac just looks rejuvenated with Bill O'Brien. And this really plays into all the strengths that we thought Mac Jones, had in his coming out and in his first year, of his ability to process and get the ball out quick to the right guy. And wow, when he's in an actually coordinated offense, that it's amazing how effective he can actually be. So, but it's tough. And like you said, it's just the division is an absolute beast right now. And I mean, it's the common refrain. What would have happened last year with those Jets games if Aaron Rodgers had been on that team? It probably would have been a little bit different. So,
A little.
but I have to say, like, I haven't given up hope. I still have to see it with Miami. I have to see Miami sustain it because I don't think Miami's, last couple drafts have been absolute slam dunks. Of course, they got Ramsey, and that's, something you got to deal with. But
and they got Chubb.
and they got talent. I mean, there's no question they got talent in key spots, but I think the Patriots will be competitive with them. We'll see. I think everybody's just waiting with the Jets to see, all right, is it going to actually be good or is it going to somehow still be a train wreck? I don't think anything can be ruled out with that team.
No, the Jets will be the most fascinating team, and we'll rapid fire through our last couple thoughts because you've been generous enough with your time as it is, but we can never stop talking with the ultimate serious football guy. I know, right? This is what and or how we do, even in May after the draft when we're supposed to be in yet one of the other lulls. Okay, schedule release is coming. It's such another made up NFL holiday. You guys will have a whole big schedule palooza. We're doing an entire show Thursday night on WEEI. Me, Hart, Keefe, talking schedule, everything else. The international game gets announced on Wednesday. It's looking like it's going to be a mid-November affair in Frankfurt against the Saints, which should be awesome. Derek Carr, Mac Jones, whatever. I think it's going to be an absolute blast.
Whatever.
Really yeah,
like that one up.
Yeah, Mac Jones versus Mac Jones 5 years from now, whatever. It'll just be fun. I hear the beer is good. The schnitzel's delish. Yeah, we're just gonna go have fresh beer. It's fine. Purity standards and laws. It's fine. What do you think? What are you looking forward to seeing? Like when the schedule comes out, I'm obviously looking immediately for the opener. I really do not want it to be against Miami again. I'm good with that for a while. Pats Fins to open the season.
Chicken.
I want the Jets. I want Pat's Jets to open the season. I think that would be great.
Rodgers.
And you know what? And I want it in Mordor. I want to open in Jersey.
Ooh, that would be fun. I mean, I could get up for that. I mean, I will say I always liked the Jets rivalry best when Rex Ryan was there, and he got you so fired up. Like you knew that they were going to bring their best punch, and it's so much better when you have rivalries and juice within the division.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm getting old and jaded, but now I feel like I'm looking more of like, all right, how many night games? How many are back to back? What are the short weeks like? Dad needs to sleep. Like, what am I gonna? What's the Monday night? What's my Thursday night game gonna look like?
When do I have to plan my down days?
Right.
What are you planning? How much fiber you're gonna pack on the trip too, old man? Actually, we all do the same thing.
I'm almost as interested to see the preseason schedule because all right, what's my summer going to look like? What's August going to look like?
Yep.
It sounds like there are rumors of a couple joint practice trips, which I always enjoy. So maybe it's a little bit more of the logistics, but I mean, there's just so many, great matchups this year within the division. When are you going down to Miami? What's that? When you got to play in Buffalo? Is it in December again? January? When do those games look like? So for me, I always start with the division. I just feel like the road to the playoffs goes through the division. These teams have, kind of owned you. Two of them have kind of owned you for the last few years. You've maintained your dominance over the Jets, but that equation has changed. So that's always where I start. But I think Germany will be a lot of fun if that all works out as you laid out. So hopefully we'll be there. And, we're getting like a crash course in like the different regions of Germany. So like you don't really wear lederhosen and that stuff in the south of Germany. So just something to be aware of with your content when you're trying to pitch to the Frankfurt people so you get it right.
Don't offend them with your idiocy.
Right. It's not like Clark Griswold. We're going European vacation,
Interesting. The other thing that I'm interested in with the schedule, and I know, let's take a step back for a second. I know the schedule is just changing dramatically with the streaming networks and the no guaranteed primetime games and just all of it. But there is still you're going to find out what the TV networks and what the NFL thinks of the Patriots by their primetime appearances and sort of their big games. And as you've kind of alluded to with your tone for the previous 40 plus minutes, I don't think there's going to be a lot of like, wow, Patriots games because there's no wow to them. There's no buzz to them. There's no star factor. Like the biggest thing they still have going for them is their grumpy old coach.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the Jets ones, like Fitzy mentioned, that one's interesting. I mean, the Eagles. I mean, I still think that the Patriots have some juice. I mean, I don't think that they're, the bottom feeders of the league by any. There's certainly a huge draw still with them. But you're right. I mean, are they going to be all those primetime games. Would I want to put Patriots Bills in primetime still? I mean, a few years ago, that's great, but that might not be the most competitive, game. At least that's how it's gone the last couple of years. So certainly a reflection on how the league feels about the team. Also just praying to God that we're not that Black Friday game.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, please, I love the idea there's a Black Friday game. I have no desire. But it's going to happen. Patriots Cowboys is going to get put on some holiday or in some primetime viewing. It's going to give it right to us.
Last year, we don't all want to work on Thanksgiving again, right?
Was that a fisting right there?
Some people call me fisty sometimes, so you never know. All right, real quick, Deuce. Let's see what else we got. Mike Vrabel gets into the Patriots Hall of Fame. Your thoughts on him winning that, and also tell me, what do I have to do? What do we have to do to put Welka, one of our original Foxborough fanboy fan crushes? What do we got to do to get the legend of Welka, get some respect back on that name in this region, and get him into the Pats Hall of Fame?
Oh God, can you erase Super Bowl 46? Because I think that's what everybody holds against him is one play. That's unfortunate, but happy for Vrabel. I mean, it was just dragging on too long. I mean, I just think in so many ways Vrabel embodies a lot of what we talk about with what this Patriots team was. And, not to say that he was like a totally forgotten free agent cast off in Pittsburgh. I think he just, was part of the rotation there at linebacker. He just wanted a chance to start. But, we kind of started that whole thing of, hey, we signed these like free agent. You don't really know who he is. And he goes on to be, just one of the most versatile players, catching touchdowns. I mean, 10 touchdowns. It's just insane to me. And some of those catches were so impressive. He was just such a hard ass too. I just love the way he played. He was a total pain in the ass to play against. And just, one of those players you talk about going into a game where you're like, I just have confidence because this guy's on my team. That was how I always felt about Mike Vrabel, whether he was playing defense, offense, special teams, whatever it was. So yeah, but we got to get Welker in there. It's one of the things I hate about this is just how one play can change things of how fans look at a player. And I mean, just the way you felt about that guy in 07, 08 without Brady, 2009 when he went down with his ACL, comes back in 2010 and is, similarly productive. I mean, it's just, there was no drop off. He was just such a unique and fun player to watch. He was just so tough. And it makes me bummed out that, that kind of gets lost because of that, one play in the Super Bowl, which I think most people kind of say, I always say, it's a tough catch that he maybe should have caught.
So did Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien said the same thing. He said it was after the game. He said it wasn't a drop.
No, right. I mean, it's like hit him off the face.
Throw wasn't great. Wasn't great. Let's keep Brady out of the hall too.
Right. I know. It's the Super Bowl and it's a huge play.
Justice
and you can talk about the plays that Julian Edelman did come through in the Super Bowl that were, that were similarly difficult catches to make. But at the same time, one play doesn't make a player. And I mean, the guy probably would have been MVP of 42 if they had hung on in that one too. So just love Welker and hope that can all be water under the bridge someday. Have him come here and get a nice round of applause. But I don't know, man. Fans are fickle.
Yeah, I blame you people.
There we go. There's Andy. There we go. Finally.
How dare you drop it?
Foxborough faithful my ass, as I like to say.
All right, last question. We got to wrap. Now he's getting angry. This has been too good a podcast for you to ruin it in the end. Last question, Andy.
So simple one. I'm sure we'll talk to you again, but I'm asking this mostly because of the tone I got from you throughout this. What's the Patriots' record going to be this year?
People are doing early rosters. We're doing early record predictions even before the schedule dropped.
9-8.
Oh, that's actually more optimistic than I took from your tone.
No, I mean, look, I think that they were a better team last year than they ever put forth on the field. And I think that you get overly depressed with how ineffective it was last year, and just the bad vibes overall that kind of gathered steam throughout the season, and you just didn't feel great about the team, and some of that still lingers. But I think the quality of the draft players, if they're able to come in, and I'm just, so excited to see Gonzalez, to see those two rookie receivers on the field in a couple weeks. I know it's OTAs, you can't tell much, but I think that those guys, if those guys start to pop and you see something out of, the guys from last year that maybe you didn't quite see enough, is Jack Jones going to come back and, everything's water under the bridge. He's back out there. He's going to be a contributor again. Okay. How do they fill the McCourty hole? That's part of it too. But if those young guys start to pop again, I think we'll start to feel better, but it's just hard to say. You haven't made that, huge change other than I think Bill O'Brien's enough to get you a couple more wins. And then if the players ascend, maybe you get 10, maybe you get 11.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the same damn record I keep offering every season, 10-7. They're 9-10 against the AFC East since Tom Brady left and his utter run of dominance against the AFC East. 6 of those wins are against the Jetropolitans.
Yeah.
I say this season, if you split with the AFC East, and every team in the AFC East has a brutal schedule. If you can split with all the teams in the AFC East and then just win 1 or 2 more than you lose the rest of the way, if against the rest of the league of those other 11 games, if you can go 6-5 or even 7-4, heaven forbid, you may see yourself A, making progress, B, being competitive, C, entertaining us, and D, with a shot to play meaningful football in January, which, with our standards and expectations reset, Deuce, is all we could possibly ask. Folks, make sure you read them on the regular at patriots.com. Listen to them Tuesday through Thursday, Patriots Unfiltered, or subscribe to the podcast. He's down there with the Laser Show, with Freddie Kirsch, with Perillo and company, always having a good time. Give him a follow on the tweet machine at Mike Dussault 19 as well. Deuce, it's been a pleasure. I hope we will speak again. We'll see you down the stadium this summertime. Hopefully we'll actually hang out in person. And of course, I'm good for the first round in Frankfurt come November.
Love it. Thanks, guys.
See you, Deuce.
All right, Deuce. That'll do. For Deuce, for Jumbo, this is Fitzy. Thanks for listening once again to Six Rings and Football Things, brought to you by WEEI, Odyssey, and 2400 Sports. Always a pleasure. Please rate, review, subscribe, and share. Take care. Good day. God bless. And as always, go Pats.